Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 is now out on just about every single platform. But there's one that we're going to talk about today that is very important, and that would be the Nintendo Switch 2. Why is it so important, you might ask? Well, today we're going to talk about 3 different aspects of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake. Starting with, is the game any good? Does it hold true? Does it hold up? What do I think? What is my opinion of the game in general? And then second, what makes the Nintendo Switch 2 version so important? And what could this be telling us about the future of third-party games on the Nintendo Switch 2? Very important detail. I would consider it almost more important than the game itself, because I feel like a lot rides on this. A lot can be told by this. Maybe not so much for the game Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 itself, but for the future of the Nintendo Switch 2. And number 3, is there anything that I don't like about the new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake? What would I like to see change? And of course, I have to add in there the one biggest disappointment of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 on the Nintendo Switch 2. All right, so first things first. How is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4? And from here on out in this video, I'm just going to refer to it as Tony Hawk, okay? We know which game we're talking about here. I'm not going to keep saying the whole title over and over again. Well, the good news is the game's fantastic. I think it's a very faithful adaptation. Now, I will say, I think it's a little bit weird that this remake was actually handled by a different studio than the 1+2 remake. 1 and 2 were actually handled by Vicarious Visions. And I thought the 1 and 2 remake were fantastic. I thought it really brought back Tony Hawk to its roots after living astray for, God, I don't know, what was that, like a decade and a half. But what's strange about 3 and 4 is it's not Vicarious Visions again. There's a reason for that, and it's because, unfortunately, Vicarious Visions has been dissolved into the greater ether that is Activision Blizzard. And I think that happened shortly after the buyout by Microsoft, now belonging to Xbox. I think Vicarious Visions is now like a Call of Duty support developer or something like that. And Tony Hawk 3 and 4 has been handled by Iron Galaxy, which is a developer who's sort of known for handling projects like this. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think Iron Galaxy handled the Killer Instinct reboot or remake for the Xbox, which makes a lot of sense because technically this is now an Xbox game. I'm sure you probably never thought of that, but yeah, Activision, who put out Tony Hawk originally, they're now owned by Microsoft, which is under the Xbox banner, which is why you're seeing it released and pushed so hard on the Xbox and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So, good news is, if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you can download this game. It doesn't cost you anything, or I guess it costs you the price of admission, right? So if you already subscribe, try that out. So with one developer doing the 1 and 2 remake and another developer handling 3 and 4, how well do they mesh? The answer is pretty well. I think that 3 and 4 holds just as strong, maybe if not even better than 1 and 2. It plays really well. It looks really good. It has some really nice, fresh updates. You know, some quality of life changes. And we got some new skaters and new music. But the new music is something we're going to get to towards the end of this video when I talk about all of the changes. And the thing that I love so much about 3 and 4 this time around is my kids are the perfect age. Crosby he's absolutely loving Tony Hawk right now. And him rediscovering 3 and 4 have really been something special. And it's really something very special to watch. So the idea that this game is introducing the Tony Hawk Pro Skater formula to a whole new generation of kids that probably weren't even born when these original games came out is really cool. it's, you know, the 90s are like in full swing again. Everything that was popular then is now uber popular now. I mean, not that they don't deserve it, but take a look at Deftones. The Deftones have never been more popular, and they've never been playing bigger arenas and stadiums. Same thing goes for bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit, for that matter. So, the 90s are back, and along with it comes Tony Hawk Pro Skater, which I think is awesome. I don't like rating games, but it's definitely up there on a scale if you had to rate it. It's just as good, if not better, as the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake. And now, let's talk about one of the more important things, if not the most important thing, about Tony Hawk this time around. Why is the Nintendo Switch 2 version the one to get, and why is it so important to the longevity of the Nintendo Switch 2? Some of this comes down to personal preference. It's very subjective, but my preferred way to play games is in a handheld device. I love it. I've grown up loving it. It's just my way. Maybe it's because I'm a dad. Maybe it's because I'm busy, and handheld games just give me the opportunity to do that wherever I'm at. But if I'm going to fall back in love with Tony Hawk, I would love to do it on a handheld device. And I know what you're saying. You know, I have the ROG Ally X and that sort of stuff, which has Game Pass, and I could totally download it there. Yes, I can. But with Nintendo's brand new console, I thought, boy, this is going to give us an opportunity to really see something. And that is, how are third-party games or ports going to be handled with a Nintendo Switch 2? Are they going to be handled with care? Could they be handled with care? We really don't even know what this thing is capable of power-wise. I mean, obviously we got launch titles like Cyberpunk, which actually runs really well on a Nintendo Switch. What about Tony Hawk 3 and 4? I have great news. Not only does the game run very well on this device, it looks really good too. And it's priced very appropriately. The game is running at a solid 60 frames a second, which is awesome. I've probably spent more of the game in handheld mode than in docked mode, but the thing that really sold me on having it on the Nintendo Switch 2 instead of, like, I am a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, so why would I not have it there? I do. I pre-ordered it there so I can play it early. I thought for sure that's where I would stream from, right? But then I realized that, unfortunately, like most other things, it is cross-platform, so you can play with other people on other platforms, but it does not have cross-progression or cross-save progression carryover. So if I got really far in the storyline or in the story mode, unlocking a bunch of stuff on my Switch, that's not going to transfer over to my Xbox or vice versa. So that kind of left me at a stalemate. I had to choose which device I was going to play it on. And I already knew that I was going to be streaming this quite a bit because you guys, the community, you showed a lot of interest in playing this game online with me, which we did last night on the Friday night live stream, and it was fantastic. I had a ton of fun. So I chose the Nintendo Switch 2 version. And I gotta be honest with you, at first I thought, boy, this is gonna be a mistake because it's certainly going to be inferior on this, right? People are gonna notice. And if I wanna put the Tony Hawk 3 and 4 first foot forward, like best foot forward, it should be the best looking version. The one that's gonna have the prettiest textures, right? The one that's gonna run the best. But I took a chance and I streamed straight off the Nintendo Switch, and it turns out, with the help of the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller, which I absolutely love, I had a blast. After I was playing for probably 10 minutes, I couldn't even have told you that I was playing on a Switch. No slowdown as far as frame rate goes. Resolution, I mean, it was running on my monitor, and my monitor's running 4K, but I would imagine with this thing docked, it's probably not running at 4K. It's probably running at 1080, 60 frames. I'm not here to talk complete tech specs because I'm not like Digital Foundry or anything like that. I'm not going to give you a total breakdown. I wasn't doing side-by-side comparisons, but I'm pretty sure it was running at 60 frames and probably at 1080, even though the monitor says it's running at 4K. The only thing that I did notice, some of the textures are, a little lower resolution. So, and you notice that a lot in the hair of things. all of my created characters have this glorious beard, right? And beard physics have never really been a thing. It always looks pretty bad. And that is apparent on the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game. But it is a very, very minute detail. I thought it would bother me more. And to be honest with you, it is one of the things that sort of bothers me a little bit. I'm like, God, well, if I could play a higher fidelity version of this game, then shouldn't I be doing that? But there's one thing that really just outweighs everything else, and that's this. That is the portability of this device. I can take games like Cyberpunk or any of these awesome games here on the go with me. Mario Kart World, which is a fantastic game, and now Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. My kids and I went out to lunch today while we were opening a box of cards, and we took our Switch 2s and we played a couple rounds at the table while we were waiting for our food. And that to me is absolutely 100% hands down invaluable. To me, again, subjective thing. But if I could take my games anywhere, I could take them on vacation with me, I could play them down here right now. I could play them upstairs, sitting on the couch while the family is doing something on the TV, maybe playing their games. I could play my games while I'm laying in bed with my wife while she's binging whatever Housewives she's watching at the moment. Or maybe she's playing her game on the TV. I can play it here. This has always been my dream. I could take it to the office with me, and I can take this with me and play it on my breaks and my lunches. That is the defining factor. And that's why this is so important. And that's why these early launch titles or launch window titles that are third party for the Nintendo Switch 2 are so important. When you look at them and you see how they run, it's a telltale sign for what we're looking at in the future. Like, we have Elden Ring coming at some point. I thought it was a launch title. Coming at some point to the Nintendo Switch 2. And I think that's another one that we're going to look at and go, how well does this run? We know that Cyberpunk runs fantastic. Now we know that Tony Hawk runs really well. Elden Ring is going to be that next one. You really can't use Nintendo proper games as a benchmark because Nintendo always knocks it out of the park with those games. We already knew Mario Kart was going to be good, and we already know that Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to be fantastic, and we already know that, Metroid Prime 4 is probably going to knock it out of the park. They know how to use their hardware, but do the third-party developers know how to hone the game experience for their game on this console? And so far, the answer's been yes. It was yes with Cyberpunk, and now it's yes with Tony Hawk. Now, I will say I waited to make this video until after the official release. I've been playing it on here since, I think, Tuesday at 9 p.m. And between Tuesday and, honestly, until like yesterday, I did have a few issues trying to get into online matches, and I did have some crashes. But as of yesterday, there was a day one patch, and I have not had any of those issues since. Everything runs perfectly. And personally, I never had the crash issue, but I know other people who have. I can also say confidently, though, that a lot of you in the community had some crash issues as well, and you weren't even on a Nintendo console. It seemed to be a problem that was widespread among different consoles, not just the Nintendo Switch, and it also seems to be a problem that, at least for me, on my end, has been fixed with a day one patch. And this is what I think is so important about a game like Tony Hawk, and why it's important for the Switch 2. So, the game is great. It runs well, it looks good, and it's faithful. It is perfect on the Nintendo Switch 2. I could take Tony Hawk 3 and 4 everywhere I go, and it runs really well, 60 frames a second. You couldn't ask for anything better. That's 2 thumbs up. Now let's talk about the stuff that I maybe don't necessarily care for, because there are a few. So buckle up, because I typically don't talk about things that I don't like, but I feel like this needs to be brought up. What do I wish the developers, Iron Galaxy, would have handled differently about the 3+4. Let's tackle that first, and then we'll tackle the one biggest issue I have so far with Tony Hawk 3 and 4. Here's the interesting thing about combining Tony Hawk 3 and 4. When they combined 1 and 2, it made a lot of sense, okay? 1 and 2, very similar games. They both had the arcade-style gameplay with the 2-minute runs. They give you a list of things to do, and here's a run that you have. You got 2 minutes to do it, right? And so, you play 10, 15, 20 times through that 2-minute loop in order to 100% the stage. Well, 3 was very similar. 3 followed in the same suit as 1 and 2, but Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 completely nixed all of that. There was not, I don't know if you remember this, but there was not 2-minute runs in Tony Hawk 4. So how do you handle combining 3 and 4 into the same game? If you remember correctly, Tony Hawk 4 actually had NPCs, and you had an open world sort of, open map. You had all these, you still had the maps, but when you entered the map, you weren't timed. You went in there and there were NPCs that you got missions from, and those NPCs would then, give you things to do, which allowed for the maps to be larger and more spread out in 4 than they were maybe in previous installments. Well, how do you handle that in a remake when you're cramming it together into the same game as 3, which has the arcade-style 2-minute runs? Well, the answer for Iron Galaxy, and I'm assuming this was a higher-up decision as well, was to cut all of that stuff from Tony Hawk 4 and turn it into the same arcade-style game that 1, 2, and 3 were. Which is strange to me because 4 was a revolution for the series. And to then remake it and take that out was, I don't know. It was a very interesting decision. Now, I will say, it's not that I dislike how it is now with 3 and 4 being bundled together. It doesn't necessarily bother me, and I'm still enjoying the game, but I do miss what happened, what was done with 4. And they sort of try and negate it by giving you this option in the game for mods. But you can go into the mods and you can actually change your time limits. You can change it to from 2 minutes to 5 minutes, I believe to 15 or 20 minutes, all the way up to I think 60 minutes. So you can go to the settings and change your time to 60 minutes. But then that sort of breaks the experience with Tony Hawk 3. Because in 60 minutes, if you're good at Tony Hawk, you can totally knock out all of those goals. So there's not really a great, one answer fits all scenario. In my opinion, the best scenario here would have been don't combine 3 and 4. Just do Tony Hawk 3, but add more to it. Maybe give us new levels. Maybe develop twice as many levels. Or maybe you could have put the levels from 4 in 3 and just called it 3 plus or whatever. And then remake Tony Hawk 4, another couple years from now. I believe the 1 and 2 remake was like 2020, right? So it's been 4 or 5 years. Now I understand that we have Tony Hawk's Underground that really took the formula from 4 and just went really big with it. So if we do in some capacity in the future get a Thug remake or remaster, maybe they do Tony Hawk's Underground 1 and 2 together, 1 plus 2, then that would be the time to really bring the modern Tony Hawk into that style of, getting missions from NPCs in the world. It just seemed like a really weird choice to combine 3 and 4. 3 and 4 weren't similar games. Now they're the same game, but they were not similar games. 4 really graduated Tony Hawk, and with this remake, now it's back down a level and it's on par with the rest of them. And maybe that's what they were looking to do, or maybe that was just, happenstance. That's one thing that I would have liked to see differently. It really doesn't break the experience for me. But, I don't know. Hit the comments and let me know what you think of this. Maybe you don't even remember the fact that, we had NPCs in 4 and it was not timed and we got missions. And so maybe it doesn't bother you. The second complaint I have about this remake is the music. One of the things that makes Tony Hawk so special is the music. And don't think I wasn't gonna harp on this. I'm a musician. I have my opinion, and I know that there's business decisions behind some of this. But I'm gonna tell you right now, from somebody who's been in the music industry for 2 decades, not all of this was a business decision. It wasn't a licensing problem. There are plenty of musicians and music that didn't make it to the remake that could have easily been licensed, probably for very little money. So it wasn't a license problem all the way around. But of the original Tony Hawk soundtrack, by my math, there's less than 20% of the original soundtrack intact. Now, I know what you're saying. We're bringing this into a new generation and a new era, right? So we have to put new music in it, and I'm all for that. There's a lot of music there. But for there to be 20%, less than 20% of the original music, that means that the majority of the music in this game is new music, which to me, if you're remaking the games, is not okay. At least give us half, 50%. I thought that there was just a couple of songs that were going to be left out. When I started playing through this game and realized that the majority of the original soundtrack was absent, that sort of blew my mind. I will say tons of new music has been added, and I do love most of the new music, with a few exceptions. There are some songs on there that are driving me up the wall, but luckily they made a new feature where you can just click the right thumbstick and it skips the track. So it's really easy to skip tracks if you don't want to hear it. But I can say this: when I'm playing this game and one of those original, one of the sub 20% songs comes on, when 96 Quite Bitter Beings by CKY hits, god damn, do I get in the zone. And it hits. It is really something special. Now, I understand this is a nostalgic thing, and this isn't my game anymore. This isn't the game necessarily for me. This is a game for me and my kids. And so my kids are really enjoying, hearing Idols on there. I think it's awesome that Idols are on there. So I understand there is a split here, and we have to make compromises. And I know that some of you were going to say, well, it's a licensing thing. They couldn't license it. That is a bunch of bullshit. I've been on this side of licensing for a very long time, and I know exactly how that works. And I know for a fact that there were some bands, Alien Ant Farm, that weren't even asked, that probably would have loved to be involved. I do love the fact that there's a bunch of new skaters. I think that is awesome. I like that the game is paying homage to the skaters who created this sport, not just Tony, but all those other skaters as well. And I am so glad. I couldn't be more happy, Bam, to see you in this game. I think it's very heartwarming. I know that you over the last decade or so, you have struggled with things, and seeing you now skating again, and seeing you in this game, and now my kids being introduced to you and your special brand of just Bam Margera is very cool, and it's heartwarming. And Tony, if you're the one that I think you're the one that made sure that he was put back in the game. I think it was such a smart choice, and I'm so thrilled to see that happened. Bam, we love you, and we're happy to see you back, dude. And I'm super excited that my kids get to experience it too. So all the skaters, awesome. I love the new skaters. I love how big this library of skaters is now, and that my kids get to choose from it, even though Crosby has just become obsessed with creating the whole family as creative skaters, which is one more thing I want to touch on. It's not that big of a deal, but the creative skater mode, it's not super deep. In fact, I'm not even sure that they touched it from the last remake, 1 and 2. So it's there, but I will say though that we spent a lot of time playing online last night on the live stream with the community, and it was awesome. Playing graffiti mode was so much fun. Playing score attack was awesome. Everything was awesome about the online mode. It's exactly how you remember it if you do play it. So there's that too. The one thing I can say now having revisited 3 and 4 and having spent a lot of time with it is, I guess I didn't spend a lot of time or have as much nostalgia for 3 and 4 as I thought that I did. Either that or I just, my memory just completely blocked it out. When 1 and 2, the remake came out, I was like, boom, school 2, like those levels were like muscle memory. I remembered every aspect of that game, both of those games and all of those levels, and they're so good. Getting into 3 and 4, there were some levels there where I was like, was this a level in the original game? I don't remember this. Am I not remembering it that well? So it's kind of been 50-50 for me. It's been a little bit of a treat because it's reintroducing me to things that I clearly have forgotten. And then also it's not hitting real hard nostalgia like 1 and 2 were, but it is also like experiencing a new game again. I think maybe if we end up getting that Tony Hawk Underground remake that we all want so bad, that's going to be the one where it really just... Also, I was a big fan of Project 8. I love Project 8. Maybe one day. So what does this mean for the Tony Hawk franchise? I don't know. It's interesting because, it wasn't that long ago that they tried to push out Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. I don't know if you remember that. And that thing ended up being a real shiny turd. Didn't do well. That was about the same time that they were pushing out Rock Band again and Guitar Hero, which didn't do well. But what does it mean now? Do they just keep going down this road? Do we get Tony Hawk's Underground and Underground 2? American Wasteland, maybe? I like that game quite a bit. It's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. But let's talk about the one thing, which is Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, that I'm really, really disappointed with. I bought the deluxe version of this game because I wanted to play it early, and we get Doomslayer and some Doom stuff, which is cool. But I knew that when Friday rolled around, I would go to the store and pick up a physical copy because, you know me, I gotta have my physical copies. So when I go to the store and look for it, what to my wondering eyes would appear? A game on a shelf with no game cart inside. What does that mean? That means that just like some of the other games in the Switch and Switch 2 library, they'll sell you a plastic case, but right here on the top it says full game download, game not included. So it is actually a game code that is inside of this case, which means, god damn it, there is no physical version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. I know I said I wasn't going to say the whole name again, but when you're in trouble, you got to say the whole fucking name. Makes you... And that really irritates me. It's a real bummer because this isn't a Nintendo decision. This is strictly a developer decision, which means Activision made this decision. Didn't mean to rhyme there. But that's what happened. Activision said, yeah, well, we'll put out a physical version. We'll just put a code in there. If you've never gotten one of these things, it's so pointless to buy. Don't buy it. You'll get it. You'll open it up. It's got a piece of paper, and it's just got a code. It doesn't even have a game cart in there, which is crazy to me. Unlike Cyberpunk, which CD Projekt Red chose to install the entire game on the game cart. Bravo to CD Projekt Red. And Nintendo is also doing that with most of their games as well. So far, Mario Kart World is installed completely on there, and some others. But stuff like Street Fighter is not for the Switch 2. Hogwarts Legacy is not for the Switch 2. So if you see those in store, unless it's some crazy deal, don't even bother buying it. Just download it when you get home on your Switch 2, because it's not a physical copy. And that's really important. Especially for a game like Tony Hawk being remade, I would have loved to have this physical. So, maybe somebody like Limited Run Games. Guys, you want to pick it up? You want to give us a physical copy? I would love that. I would love to have this game physical. The one thing I can say is Activision, Microsoft, whoever was in charge of this, you guys did price it right. So the game is priced at $49, $50, which is what the game launched at back in the day. Which is super cool. That's what one game launched at. We're getting two games. 2, 3, and 4 for $50, $49. So for that price point, you really can't complain that it's a digital download. Truth be told, I would have totally paid $70 for a physical version of this game. Something that I could carry around with me in my awesome D-brand Kill Switch case, which has these awesome game holders. Yes, there are physical games on the Switch too. Yeah, I would have loved that, and I would have paid more money for it, but we didn't get it. And maybe this is like there's a limited edition or something that we'll get in the future. Who knows? Hopefully. It's like not that long ago I picked up the Indiana Jones Collector's Edition box set for the Xbox, the one that came with the big globe and all that cool shit. And then I opened it up, and it even came with the game case, a hard case, steelbook case. And I opened it up, and it was just a download code. It wasn't even a physical. I will say they did get pretty cheeky, and they actually put a key in there, and on the key was the game key written. So that was neat, I suppose. But I would have rather had it physical. And the thing I am most disappointed in with this release, for the Nintendo Switch at least, is the fact that there is no physical version. That to me is, even though they did a good job on the port to the Nintendo Switch 2, that to me is sort of like Activision saying, well, we just don't believe enough people are going to buy it. And that's what the decision comes down to, is saving money because they don't think enough people are going to be interested in it. So at the end of the day, if we want physical copies of games, we have to take accountability. This is what I call gamer accountability. We have to be interested. We have to show interest. And if we don't, the devs and the publishers aren't going to release it that way. If we want it, we have to vote with our wallet. Now, that's not to say I'm not going to support the game, because obviously I love the game and I can't wait to play more of it. But if you are somebody who wants physical media to stay around, just make sure that you do buy it physical when it's available. Because if you don't, they're not going to release it physically anymore. So with that being said, that is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4, most notably for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's what we talked about. Those are my thoughts on it. I think A, the game is fantastic. B, I think that it is perfect on the Nintendo Switch 2, and crazy, but it's where I'm gonna play it. It's where I've decided to put my time in. And C, there are a few things that I don't like about this release, but I think that's the way that things are just sort of trending at the moment. If you're one of those people who is wondering what case I have on my Switch 2 here, because I do get asked that quite frequently, this is the Kill Switch 2 by my friends over at D-Brand. I am an affiliate with them, and so if you do want to purchase this case, I did have a link that I added down below in the description. If you choose to purchase it with that link, just know that that does support me and that does support my channel. I am a big fan of this case. I love it quite a bit. If you want to know what I'm talking about when it comes to physical media and how it is all but disappearing, you should check out this video right here. Me and my boys went around to a bunch of big box stores and checked out the state of physical media in the year 2025. And if you don't want to miss videos like this in the future, where I talk and give you my opinion on games and new stuff and retro stuff and all of this stuff, follow along right here. Click that little bell icon to be notified when we do post new videos, or just join the Discord, which is down below, because that will tell you as well. And until next time, enjoy the journey.